Well, what we have here is a little something called hyperinflation. And if you've never heard of it, this is just one of many examples. This would be Germany, 1918 to 1923, where you can see a loaf of bread went from 1 mark to 200 billion. And it's Thursday, February 11th, 2021. And I'm here with another episode of the Promain Show. Thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about hyperinflation. And this is the first scroll from the Tales of the Prophet. For I am predicting hyperinflation. What is hyperinflation? Well, hyperinflation, quite simply, is when the price of things skyrocket. Very simple to understand, very simple concept. It's when your currency becomes basically worthless and $1, whatever it took $1 to buy, now takes $100 billion or $100 million. Now, the thing that's so interesting about this to me is that I had always thought my entire life that when you got into the billions and trillions, that was something like of a new nature, you know? When I look at Germany, for instance, and I see that in 1921 or 1922, they had $100 trillion bills and $100 billion bills, that just blows my mind because I didn't even think that they reached those numbers before. How does it happen? Well, it happens quite simply when you print yourself into oblivion. In other words, when you print $4 trillion in 1 year, or when you print unlimited amounts of money and it's never tied to anything that's of true value. So today we're going to go through a few examples of where this has happened. This has happened in Hungary, this has happened in Germany, this has happened in Yugoslavia, this has happened in Venezuela, which we went through last week. This has happened in Zimbabwe, and actually this has happened 56 times in 56 different countries over the last 100 years. And yet I'm willing to put some money down that barely anybody's heard of it. I know I never heard of it until I started really studying these things last year. Of course, because we all had lots of time to do things. And do things we did. And so let's jump right into it. Hyperinflation occurs when you have a monthly increase of 50% or more. So if eggs cost you $4 and at the end of the month they've gone up to $6, you have hyperinflation on your hands. So be on the lookout for that. To understand the course of the future, we must understand the events of the past. Germany, 1921 to 1923. Highest monthly inflation rate, 30,000%. Prices doubled every few days. Germany suspended the gold standard to fight the war. And so they got off the gold standard, where their currency was backed by gold and silver, and they were able to print money in order to fund the war effort. And the way that they were going to pay for it was through the spoils of war. And of course, we all know how that went. It didn't go very well. And so what happened after that was Germany had to pay the war reparations. And of course, this was a very high price for them to pay. They couldn't pay it in German marks. So what they had to do was buy foreign currency that was accepted by the Allies. And that was a very bad exchange rate. Long story short, their money printers went brrrr, meaning they printed and printed and printed to pay for their war reparations. And because they printed all kinds of money, their prices went up. A $50 mark went to 50,000, which went to 5 million, which went to 500 million, which went to 5 billion, all the way up to a $50 trillion bill. Okay? This is Germany in the 20s with a $50 trillion bill. A number that I had thought they didn't even have in existence when it came to money until recently. Next up, Hungary. August 1945 to July 1946. Where their money printers went brrrr so much that they printed into existence $65 quadrillion. Okay? $65 quadrillion. 12 months after that, they grew the money supply to 47 septillion. Okay? That's a trillion. That's like something costing 379 penge, all right? And then 12 months later, it costs a trillion. Okay? A trillion. 47 septillion, all right? That's a big number. That's what has happened before in history, if you can believe it. Their highest monthly inflation rate was 41 quadrillion percent. Okay, that was 207% of a daily increase every single day for items. Okay, could you imagine every single day things cost 207% more? You see, it seems like such a crazy thing that it's something that we can't even take. Like, you can't even take it serious. You know, it just sounds like it's a joke. You know, I could never. People would never imagine that happening here. Okay, but if last year has taught us anything, it's that we're not immune to world situations. And things happen to other countries, and they can also happen here. Okay? We shouldn't be so full of ourselves that we think that we're so advanced that it could never happen to us. Okay, that kind of mentality is like what happened last year when all the other countries were going into lockdown, and people were thinking that we would never go into lockdown here. And of course we did. So the correlation between what I'm going to show you today with all of these countries and the history of how they ended up in hyperinflation, it's always because they printed money unlimited. They printed themselves into oblivion. And last year, the USA has printed into existence 40% of its entire money supply. Okay, it was in existence for like 200 years of the money printing. Last year alone, they printed 40% of their existing money supply, all in 1 year. Okay, so the consequences from that are going to be felt in consumer goods. Right now, the only place we're seeing inflation is in assets. So the Dow Jones, of course, is reaching new heights. The stock market's going up, 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 and people think that the stock market's just going to go up forever. And so the stock market is continuing to increase. That's inflation. We also have house prices, which are up 8% in January 2021 alone, up 8%. That's almost 10%. So assets are being inflated right now. That's where the inflation is happening. Of course, it's not hyperinflation yet, but consumer goods are always the end result of inflation. So inflation right now is in the markets, is in assets, right? It's in commodities too. If you look at the price of lumber, and all lumber has gone from like I think 300 to 800 or 900. Okay, the price of lumber, the price of copper, the price of commodities is going up. The only thing that's not going up is gold and silver, and that's because it's manipulated. They don't want people to buy that because they don't want people finding out the truth about it. But that was a topic for last episode. So right now, inflation you can see inside assets. But what does everybody want? Everybody wants consumer goods. That's what everybody gets eventually anyways, because if you have assets, then the end result of that is for you to take your profits and buy consumer goods. Those are the things that people buy. So inflation will end up, in the end result will be in consumer goods. And so, of course, the purpose of this video is not to alarm people, but it's to quite simply let them know about the potential situation that we could have on our hands and how they can best prepare themselves to ride out any potential storm. Next up, Yugoslavia. 1992 to 1994, where the monthly inflation rate was 313 million percent. Okay, and there was bread lines, there was gas stations that were closed, and this thing always looks the exact same every place that it happens. Okay, Venezuela, Zimbabwe, it doesn't matter where. There's water supply shortages, like cuts of services. There's electrical supply shortages. Gas stations are always empty. There's bread lines, food lines. You're waiting in line for hours and hours and hours. That's basically your whole days. You're waiting in line for bread. Okay, when you could have bought flour and been able to make your own bread. But anyways, and there's always severe food shortages. Okay, so this thing always looks the same every single time that it happens as you continue to study them. Next up, we got Zimbabwe, which was basically from March 2007 to November 2008, where the monthly inflation rate was 79.6 billion, and the daily inflation rate was 98%. Okay? And so here, just like everywhere else, it's the famous wheelbarrows of cash. Okay? Wheelbarrows of cash going in to buy you just simple goods. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. It's actually well, I hate to say this, but it's actually quite funny. If you see what people are reduced to here, it's quite ridiculous. And so next what we have is Venezuela, which we spoke about 2 weeks ago in episode 3, Financial Phil. And so we won't touch on that again, but what I will say is, once again, it's the exact same thing, exact same shortages, exact same issue. of printing your money into oblivion and the wheelbarrows of cash. And so right now, nobody sees this as a problem. You won't hear anything about it on Bloomberg Financial or CNBC or anything like that. Nobody's talking about hyperinflation because, of course, we can print unlimited amounts of money. Our money printers can just keep going everywhere. And there's something called modern monetary theory, in which they truly believe that you can print money, and so long as government can print money, it can pay for everything. Well, you'll have to see Yugoslavia, you'll have to see Hungary, you'll have to see Germany, you have to see every single time that humans have thought that they could do this and that there'd be no consequences. And of course, there are consequences, and it's always the same result, and that's hyperinflation. So, like I said, in order to see where we're going, we have to look into the past. And so, if we don't learn from the past, then we're destined to repeat those mistakes. So this is all very elementary, my dear Watson. It's very easy for me to take a look and say that I'm this great prophet and that I'm predicting this thing that's going to come, but really it's not even that special. All you have to do is just pay attention and know about it. And so that's the purpose of this video today. And so it's not just the US that's printed into existence 40% of its entire money supply in 1 year. It's also multiple governments around the world. So what we could potentially have is a world hyperinflation situation in which basically it opens the door for a brand new system to be created. Now, I'm not saying that that's being done on purpose or by design. I'm just saying that that's most likely what's going to happen. If we have a world situation where hyperinflation happens and everything goes crazy, they're going to try something new. Okay, and there's only two real choices. It's going to be something really completely new, a digital currency, or it's going to be back to gold and silver, which is what always worked for 6,000 years. I don't know which of the two it's going to be, but it's going to be very interesting to find out. So now really quickly, we're going to take a look at the 4 factors that influence hyperinflation, and we'll see why it hasn't happened here yet and what needs to happen for it to occur. So number 1 is industrial output. How much stuff do we make? The more stuff that we make, the less the prices are. The less stuff that we make, the more the prices are. And of course, we never really made that much stuff these days anyways. It's all imported from other countries. So in this area, we have remained the same. Number 2 is employment. And so the more employees there are, the more those employers have to fight for employees, and the higher the wages go, which means higher prices. And so since our employment is down right now, that means wages are down, which means that prices are down. So in this area, we are also looking good right now for that purpose of hyperinflation. Number 3 is the topic of this video, which is the money supply. And quite simply, it's the easiest to understand. The more dollars there are in the system, the higher the prices go. The less dollars that are in the system, the less the prices are. So in this area, we have gone way, way up. And finally, number 4, the velocity of money. Quite simply, the speed at which money is exchanging hands in the economy. So let's say in 2019, for example, the economy was booming, people were spending money was exchanging hands very quickly at a very fast pace. So the velocity of money is important. When the velocity of money slows down exponentially, what you have is something called deflation. So right now, the velocity of money is down. There's less people spending money on things, the economy is closed, so velocity of money is down. So here's the point of all of this, is that the only indicator out of these 4 right now that we are leading to hyperinflation in would be the money supply. But as the economy starts to get back online, okay, and this is important, and the velocity of money increases, it starts exchanging hands at a quicker and more normal pace, and then employment goes back up, and let's say it goes back up to even better numbers than before. If we have employment way, way up, and we have the velocity of money way, way up, and the money supply way, way up, well, we have a very big potential situation of hyperinflation on our hands. The last factor of industrial output, I don't believe would make a very big difference to us anyways, because we have largely left that behind. So if we actually start making lots of goods, then that would be good, because that could help to keep the prices down, at least in one of the 4 areas. But if we continue to produce nothing and even produce less than before, then we definitely have a bad situation on our hands. So you see that these are the 4 factors. And so finally, what can you do to protect yourself against hyperinflation, should the situation ever arise? Heaven forbid. one thing you want to get is access to clean drinking water. I would highly suggest a Berkey water filter. Berkey water filter costs around $450 to $500, but it provides you with clean drinking water for 10 to 15 years. Okay? Berkey water filter can clean water from the lake, it can clean rainwater, it can clean water from a trough, it can clean water in a puddle at the end of your driveway. Okay? It can literally take anything and make it clean water. So this is essential to have, because if water goes from $1 to $1 million, you're going to wish that you had one. All right? Another thing that you're going to, and by the way, the Berkey water filter was used in humanitarian missions all over Africa. It's from India. I think it was patented in India. It's been around for a long time. It requires no electricity. It just works on alkaline and everything like that. It's just fantastic. Another thing that you want to do is you want to stock up on food, because the thing that goes up that people get hurt with the most is food. So you want to have flour in your home. Flour is very important. Anybody who's gone through war or anything like that will tell you that the one thing that they wish they had was flour, because with flour you can what? You can make bread. And instead of going and spending 2 billion marks for bread, or waiting in this food line and the whole day you're in the food line and you're lining up like a sucker, okay? You could be chilling at home with your feet up with your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend or whatever it is, and you'll be laughing, okay? So you want to have flour, you want to have spices, you want to have your fridge and your not your fridge, but you want to have your freezer full of the things that you need. Frozen vegetables. Might I also suggest getting yourself some seeds so that you can keep those seeds in case you ever need to plant them. Gardening is huge. Everybody should really learn in the years ahead to become more resilient. Learn how to garden, learn how to grow your own food, how to store your own food. It's important to know these things, because if things all fall apart, you will wish that you prepared when you had the chance. Another thing that you might want to think about doing is what we talked about last week and the week before, which is getting your hands on some gold and silver. Because as we can see from the example of Venezuela, gold and silver takes off and stays with the rate of inflation. So that's all. If hyperinflation happens, rent is going to go up, everything's going to go up. But if you can at least have access to clean drinking water and food, then you're doing way, 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 way better than probably 99% of your friends and family. If you found value in this episode and you wish to support the Prophet in his work, then all you have to do is hit the like button. And please make sure you're subscribed to the channel. New episodes every Thursday at 8 p.m. And if you wish to go that extra mile for the Prophet, then please do share this video with friends and family. We must save people from hyperinflation. The Prophet has spoken.